Hello, welcome to our course on Yoga Nidra. My name is Swami Janeshwar, and I'm going to be hanging out with you through these various presentations. We have a lot of information and principles to share with you. We're going to give you some guidelines on what Yoga Nidra in the traditional sense is really about. We're going to give you some recorded, guided practices to do. We're going to tell you some stories that are metaphors for the nature of Yoga Nidra, which is of conscious deep sleep. When you look at the previews on the course, we have several selections there that if you watch them, you'll get a pretty good idea of where we're going together in the course. We're having an absolute ball putting this together for you. I really think you're going to enjoy it. I certainly hope so. Welcome. See, now I say welcome, and see, now I'm inviting you in. Anyway, I'm a little playful. I hope you enjoy my playfulness as we go through this together. I like being playful. You know, I say with a stern face, I like to be playful. We should enjoy life. We should enjoy all of the aspects of meditation, and we should enjoy Yoga Nidra. We should enjoy life. So please have fun with this. Go through the presentations in your own way. If you are inclined to systematically go through something one after the other in that kind of sequence, go through it in that way. If you are inclined to bounce around and look at a little bit of this and then a little bit of that, that's okay too. If you are inclined to go straight to the practices, go to the end of the presentations near the end of the course and go ahead and download the MP3 files and play with it a little bit, and then come back and watch through the video presentations. Follow your own inclination. However you want to go through this, follow that lead. It's all okay with me. We're going to have fun with it. I hope you have fun with it. I know you're going to have fun with it. I insist that you please have fun with this. How's that? Is that sweet and kind and loving? You will have fun with this course. I'm already having fun right now. The editor is going to beat me up, but it's okay. Please have fun with this, okay? Bye-bye. See you soon. See you soon in one of the next presentations. Okay? Hello. Yoga Nidra is a state of consciousness. I can't say that too much. Yoga Nidra, true Yoga Nidra is a state of consciousness. The word, the terminology refers to the state of consciousness. Yoga Nidra is not the methods that we use to lead up to that state of consciousness. Yoga Nidra is a state of conscious deep sleep. We're going to talk more about it. But the important part here that I want to emphasize, again, I know that I'm being repetitive, but the terminology refers to the state of consciousness. The word Nidra literally means sleep. Oddly, I have had people write me emails. It's not uncommon that say, I want to learn more about Nidra. And we'll go on to explain, and because they don't want to refer to it as Yoga Nidra. They want it to be Nidra that's independent of yoga. And it's really confusing to people when I try to explain, well, Nidra you're already doing. Nidra is you're already doing. Every one of us is already doing Nidra. Every night we go to bed, we fall asleep, and that sleep, that deep sleep that is dreamless deep sleep is Nidra. How does a yogi, an adept, a master yogi do deep sleep? Sounds paradoxical, but he or she does it consciously. So Yoga Nidra is a state of conscious deep sleep. It sounds paradoxical. It sounds crazy to the waking state mind. How the hell can I be in deep sleep with no dreams, no pictures, no words, and yet I'm awake? It sounds very, very strange to the conscious waking state mind that we are using right now. It sounds odd until you start to have some glimpses of it. And then you realize, wow, this is really true. There is such a state of consciousness that I realize now in retrospect, I was actually in deep sleep. There was no objects, no pictures, no words. There was no world out here distracting me in any kind of way. And yet, I was not inert. Somehow it seemed like I was alive and alert and aware. I was in conscious deep sleep. Now we use various methods to lead us to the doorway of this conscious deep sleep. And so it's very tempting to think, well, there are different methods of Yoga Nidra. No, there are different methods of moving the awareness around internally in one way or another. But when you jump off, so to speak, when you jump off out of those visualizations and those movements of the minds, when you jump off, you jump into the state of Yoga Nidra. In our common language, we all are familiar with the phrase fall asleep. I went to bed last night and I laid there and I remembered mantra, or I worried, or I tossed and turned, and finally I fell asleep. We all use that language, fall asleep, fall asleep, fall asleep. And the Yoga Nidra state is a little bit similar to that. We sort of jump off the cliff of active mind into the state of Yoga Nidra. We will talk more about this, but remember, at this point, I just want to impress on you very clearly that Yoga Nidra is referring to the state of conscious deep sleep. It's not really referring to different varieties of methods that lead us there. We jump off into the state of conscious deep sleep. Okay? More to come. Please have fun with this or it'll drive you crazy. And don't go crazy over Yoga Nidra. It ought to be the exact opposite of go crazy. But it's a fun journey, and I know there's probably going to be some surprises for you as we go through this. Be kind, be patient with yourself, and practice. Yoga Nidra. Yoga Nidra. The sleep of the yogis. Yoga Nidra is beyond relaxation. Relaxation is a wonderful, wonderful thing to do. We have very active, busy lives, and sometimes there's a little chaos going on around us, and all we want to do is relax and go home and be quiet for a while. Relaxation is a wonderful thing to do, but relaxation typically refers to a sort of quietness that is in the waking state of consciousness. What you and I are doing right now, we're using our conscious mind and we are in the waking state of consciousness. And we like to relax because we're busy using our conscious minds and out in the activities of the world, and we like to do some relaxation. We may use different methods, or we may just walk in the front door of the house and plop down on the couch or the floor or your favorite chair, and you're just kind of doing nothing and you're just relaxing. But Yoga Nidra is beyond relaxation. What do I mean by that? Because Yoga Nidra, again, is conscious deep sleep. Conscious deep sleep is not the same thing as being conscious in the waking state of consciousness. Relaxation means I'm in the waking state of consciousness, but I'm relaxing. I'm just kind of letting go of all of the activities of the day. Imagine you're on your couch and there you are, you're just being quiet. Or you've run off to the beach or a park and you're in nature somewhere and you're just relaxing. Yoga Nidra is beyond relaxation. This is not a criticism of relaxation. Relaxation is extremely, extremely useful. It's an important thing to know how to do, to be able to just relax our mind and body at will whenever we want to. Very important to do. This is just a reminder that Yoga Nidra is beyond that. These practices that we're going to be teaching you, some of them can sometimes be used easily for the purpose of relaxation. But remember that what we're trying to do for Yoga Nidra, which is a state of consciousness, is to drop off into that state of conscious deep sleep, which is Yoga Nidra. So the methods themselves that we're going to give you later on in the course, those methods themselves can be very relaxing, and just don't drop off into the deep sleep, conscious deep sleep state. So again, it's not about the methods. Remember again, Yoga Nidra is a state of consciousness, and that state of consciousness is one of conscious deep sleep, and it is beyond relaxation. Relaxation has to do with the conscious waking state mind, what we're doing and using right now. This is what we're using and doing right now. Relaxation is very important. Just remember the simple principle. It's a simple principle, but it's very easy to forget. And then you end up being confused about all this Yoga Nidra business, and it's not confusing. Just remember that the Yoga Nidra state that we're seeking is beyond relaxation, as wonderful as relaxation is. Okay? Yoga Nidra, once again, Yoga Nidra is a state of consciousness. Yoga Nidra is beyond practices of guided imagery. There are many, many guided imageries that people do in workshops, or you can buy on CDs and recordings. They may be very useful, they may be very pleasant, but the Yoga Nidra is actually a state beyond. So it is not itself guided imagery. There's a subtle point here. I'm making this to you just so you don't accidentally lose sight, so that you don't accidentally lose sight of the fact that Yoga Nidra is a state of consciousness. It's not merely that we're trying to do a guided imagery practice. At the end of the exercises that we're going to teach you, the hope is that you drop off into conscious deep sleep. I know this is repetitive. One more time. Yoga Nidra, one more time, Yoga Nidra is a state of consciousness. It is a state of deep sleep that is paradoxically awake and alert. There's no contents in the mind, there's no dreaming, there's no engagement with the external world out here. And you may do guided imageries for, we already talked about relaxation, or other purposes. But those guided imageries, as wonderful as they are not of themselves Yoga Nidra. Remember, I know being repetitive, Yoga Nidra is a state of consciousness, but to just simply do or follow a guided imagery, as useful and pleasant as that may be, unto itself, it is not Yoga Nidra. Okay? Yoga Nidra is beyond the practices of guided imagery. Okay? Talk to you soon. There's an old saying that I have no idea where it comes from, who to give credit for the comment. But the comment is that music soothes the savage beast in us. Music is a wonderful, wonderful thing. Whether you're doing music that is doing Sanskrit kirtans and you're chanting together, or you're listening to some beautiful piano music or flute music or rock and roll music, whatever the music is that you happen to enjoy listening to, music is a fabulous, fabulous thing to do. Please understand that the comment I'm wanting to make here is not anti-music. Music is a wonderful, wonderful thing, and it can soothe the savage beast that is in all of us when we are living these chaotic lives, and it's just so nice. You're driving down the road and there's all these cars and you turn on some nice music and you listen and things are calm. Or you go home after a busy day and you plop down on your favorite chair or your couch and you turn on your favorite music and you're rocking out, or you're getting taken away down a stream of orchestral music or whatever you call it, like our Yanni is a favorite that some of people I know listen to. There's just wonderful, wonderful music. But the point here, the reminder here, is that Yoga Nidra, once again, is a state of consciousness, of conscious deep sleep. Well, if you are actually in the state of Yoga Nidra, you are not listening to music. You simply cannot be listening to music while you're in Yoga Nidra, because the cognitive senses of hearing, that part of our mental functioning, we have gone beyond that. You can hear music when you're in the quiet, calm, conscious mind doing, we were talking about earlier, relaxation. You can listen to music and you're in the waking state of conscious using the conscious mind. You could be listening to the celestial songs of the divinity in your dream state and just having beautiful, beautiful journeys through the dream worlds, the astral planes and all that sort of stuff that we're doing. It can be very pleasant, and the angels are playing their flutes and the music is wonderful. But when you fall off into deep sleep, all of that switches off. So Yoga Nidra is beyond music. And again, saying that Yoga Nidra is beyond music is not a criticism of music. It's just that music is enjoyed typically in the conscious waking state of mind. And we can sometimes hear the inner music playing in the dreaming state. But in the deep sleep state, all of that switches off and there is no music. If there were music going on, if there were music playing in the room where you are and you're in the state of Yoga Nidra, you won't hear it. You just won't hear it. So again, Yoga Nidra is beyond music. Okay? Enjoy this, and don't let what I'm saying be troubling to you. Just allow it to sink in gently, 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 so that there is a beauty to the recognition of being totally still and quiet and essentially in the deep sleep state, but conscious. Yoga Nidra is conscious deep sleep. Therefore, Yoga Nidra is also beyond sankalpas or affirmations. It has become relatively common in our modern world to think that Yoga Nidra is a way of affirming something that you want. I want a new car, I want some more money, I want a new partner, a new relationship, and there are suggestions being given around that you use Yoga Nidra with a sankalpa, with a determination to have that worldly benefit come to you, to do that affirmation. This has become very common. This is not what traditional Yoga Nidra is about. Yoga Nidra, one more time, is a state of conscious deep sleep. Now, I'm not taking sides on whether it's a good and useful thing to build an external life on the basis of affirmations and sankalpas to get more money, to get better relationships, to get name and fame. You get to decide whether those are the real goals of yoga, whether something like enlightenment or self-realization is the goal, or whether seeking more pleasures in life is the goal of life. We all get to decide that. Traditionally, yoga is about awakening to the true self, commonly written with a capital S, S-E-L-F, or Atman, or Purusha. There's a variety of different words for this deepest, highest level of eternal consciousness. This is the direction that Yoga Nidra is about. Yoga Nidra is simply not about doing determinations or sankalpas to gain more worldly stuff. It's just not what it's about. And I'm mentioning this to you because when I try to talk to people about Yoga Nidra, this is one of the most common things that comes back to me as a person says, but what about my sankalpa? What about my sankalpa of what I'm trying to gain from doing this practice? And we're not trying to gain something in the external worldly sense. We're not trying to gain more ownership of stuff in the world. That's just not what it's about. It's about finding and awakening to the center of consciousness. Yoga Nidra is extremely close to this highest goal of self-realization. It's not quite there. It stops short of that because that Atman, that self, is beyond waking, it's beyond dreaming, and it's beyond deep sleep. But conscious deep sleep is very close. It's a next door neighbor. But it's not about gaining more worldly pleasures and goods so that we can have fun in the external world and have even more distractions than we already have. Yoga Nidra is simply beyond any practices of sankalpa for worldly gains and beyond any comparable sort of affirmations for similar such purposes. Yoga Nidra is beyond that. It's extremely profound, deeply rewarding, insightful state of consciousness that simply must be experienced. Please seek nothing less than that, okay? Thank you. Hello again. Another thing has happened in our world of yoga in the last few years. It has become somewhat common for somebody to create a guided imagery, a guided visualization, and because the terminology Yoga Nidra has become popular and known, somebody will put out a recording that says Yoga Nidra for this or that disease or malady or emotional, psychological problem. So you end up with Yoga Nidra for fill in the blank. That's not what Yoga Nidra is about. There is no specific separate Yoga Nidra practice for this or that physical illness. It's just not how it works. Now, having conscious deep sleep is going down to a very deep level of our being. It's where our samskaras, our deep habit patterns, are in their formless form. They are not manifesting outward as dreams, and they are not manifesting outward as activities and speech and procurement of stuff out in the external world in the waking state. In conscious deep sleep, all of those are latent. And even the attempt to go to that deep level has an effect that it's a little bit like, it's not a perfect metaphor, but it's a little bit like, what do you do when your computer gets all jammed up? It freezes because you have too many programs or applications open. What do you do with that? You restart the machine. What does restart the machine? It means you push a button or something. Essentially, this is what we're doing with Yoga Nidra. We're going to the level of conscious deep sleep. Not conscious waking, not conscious dreaming. In the metaphor of the computer, the the screen turns black and turns off. The microphone and the sound, the speakers, they switch off. The microchip turns off. All of the activity turns off and the computer restarts. This is what we're doing with Yoga Nidra. The computer is essentially going into deep sleep. Most of the computers now have a sleep function. You can put your computer to sleep. It's a little bit like you could almost get the programmers of the computer to not call it the sleep function. You could call it the Yoga Nidra function on your computer. I'm going to do some Yoga Nidra. I'm going to go into conscious deep sleep. And the effect that has, that I'm using it as a metaphor, but the effect that it has is that it reboots, it restarts all of those jammed up, locked up applications that we've had going that has led us into this crazy life. And part of that may be some effect on either disease creation or prevention of disease or recovery from problems we're already having. So the act of Yoga Nidra itself, by attaining this state of conscious deep sleep, something beautiful happens in terms of the physical health of our physical bodies. It's like restarting the computer. So it's very, very beneficial. But there's no such thing as a conscious deep sleep that is for this particular disease. Those practices may be fun, they may be useful. I'm not telling anybody, don't use anything that you want. Follow any guided imagery that you want. But when we call it Yoga Nidra, then we are confusing ourselves. We are confusing the basics of what Yoga Nidra really is about. It is just simply not accurate to say Yoga Nidra for this or that fill in the blank disease. Okay? Do the practice and watch many aspects of your life get better. Whatever health things are going on may get better through the practice of Yoga Nidra. Remember, it's a companion to meditation and they work together, and all aspects of life and relationships tend to improve. Okay? Yoga Nidra, conscious deep sleep. Hello again. Yoga Nidra is beyond reverie. What is reverie? Reverie is a terminology, a term that is relatively commonly known. We've all experienced this reverie state sometimes in the early morning after you've been in bed sleeping all night. Maybe you were having some dreams and you're just about to start to wake up. You haven't gotten out of bed yet. Your head's still on the pillow. You're starting the transition from laying there in bed to waking up. But you may, for example, not yet remember your name. You may not remember where you are, that you're in your own home, in your own bed. You're in a halfway area. You're halfway between a dream you were just having, or a nightmare, hopefully a nice sweet dream. You're halfway between a dream and being awake and out here in the conscious waking state world, getting up and stretching and saying to your friend, "Good morning." You're not in either world. You're in this halfway world. It's halfway between waking and dreaming. There's fancy words for that, but we're not trying to go into that right now. Just simple common language term for this is reverie. It's a very common thing to think, well, this reverie state is what Yoga Nidra is about. Now, it's very, very pleasant state, the reverie state that's halfway between dreaming and waking. It's a very pleasant state, but it falls way short of Yoga Nidra. Yoga Nidra is conscious deep sleep. And in deep sleep, there's no pictures, there's no words, there's no dreams. If there were dreams, it would not be deep sleep, it would be dreaming. There are waking, there is dreaming, and there is deep sleep. The reverie is halfway between waking and dreaming. It's in here. Very pleasant state to be in, but it's simply not the same as this. And again, like I keep saying, that's not a criticism. Nothing wrong with experiencing reverie. It's a very pleasant thing to experience. Nothing wrong with it. But if we don't understand this, we will completely miss. We will never gain the experience of Yoga Nidra. And that's what we're trying to do. Conscious deep sleep is beyond reverie. Yoga Nidra is also beyond lucid dreaming. Lucid dreaming is a terminology that emerged somewhere on order of about 20 or 30 years ago. I remember when the terminology became popular and there were books being written and there were workshops and retreats on how to do lucid dreaming. And one more time, talking about lucid dreaming is not a criticism of practices of lucid dreaming. In fact, the yogi, the practitioner of the full range of what yoga is ultimately about, does want to become a witness of the waking state, the dreaming state, and the deep sleep state, wants to know them all. Out here it may be called mindfulness or meditation in action. One of the popular terms, again, for being aware of your dreams while you're in the dream is lucid dreaming. It's not a criticism of lucid dreaming to say that Yoga Nidra is one step beyond that. And beyond is not just a sales pitch to say my deal is better than their deal. It's not that. There are different levels of consciousness. We all know this. All of us already know this because we live it literally every day. We know what it's like to be in the conscious waking state mind right now. We know what it's like to be laying in bed dreaming. We've all experienced dreams. Some experience a lot of dreams, some not very often, but we all know what it's like to have a dream. And we all know that we can fall into deep sleep. We can watch another person do it. You can see a person. You can watch a dog do it. You know, they're laying there and they're like this and they're kind of asleep and you can see the lips moving a little. They're having a conversation in their mind. You can see the eyes moving and this and that. You can see they're having a dream. In sleep research labs, that's when they'll sometimes wake the person up and say, tell us the dream that you were just having. And the person gets jarred out of sleep right in the middle of a dream so that they can do dream research on this and say, well, I was dreaming about blah, 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 blah. But if you don't wake the person up, you can watch and sometimes you'll see that those little motions are going on and all of a sudden everything sort of stops. And the person just went into deep sleep. I'm just saying this to say that we all know this. We all know what the experience is like. Somebody says, how did you sleep last night? You said, boy, I slept fabulously. I slept like a log. If we say I slept like a log, what are we saying? Well, somebody inside was awake enough to realize there was no dreams, there was no nightmares. How does a log sleep? It's just there. It just lays there. Nothing's going on. We all know this. There's waking, there's dreaming, and there is deep sleep, which is dreamless. It's simply different than lucid dreaming. Practice lucid dreaming. Try to become aware of all the levels of consciousness, and eventually what that will reveal to us is the awareness of what's called, in yogic language, the fourth state, which is that consciousness which is alive and operating in each of the other three. But that's beyond, so to speak, Yoga Nidra. It's very close. It's in the neighborhood, but it's close, but it's not quite there. So Yoga Nidra is beyond lucid dreaming. Play with lucid dreaming. Play with it. Observe the waking state. Practice mindfulness and yoga in daily life or meditation in action. Do these things and play with the awareness of dreams. You learn something about yourself from dreams and learn some lucid dreaming if you want. But just remember that Yoga Nidra is beyond the reverie state, it's beyond the waking state relaxation, it's beyond, again, the reverie, and it's beyond lucid dreaming. It's conscious deep sleep. Okay? Hello again. This is a hard one to have to say to you, but Yoga Nidra is not new. Why am I telling you that? Because believe it or not, there are some people around who are claiming that so-and-so person in relatively recent years has invented Yoga Nidra. It is saying in effect that some living, breathing human being man has invented sleep. Now that ought to be self-evident that that's a ridiculous, ridiculous claim. Humanity has been experiencing waking, dreaming, and deep sleep. I don't know how long, I can't prove it. As long as we've been around, waking, dreaming, and deep sleep. Who can claim ownership of sleep? And Yoga Nidra is a state of consciousness of deep sleep. And we've talked waking, dreaming, deep sleep. I mentioned lightly, we're not going to go into this in this course in great detail, but beyond that is Turiya. This is where we find pure consciousness, the capital S self, the Atman, the Purusha, words like that. This has been the basis of yoga for thousands of years. The awareness of these levels of consciousness is simply not new. It's just not new. Sorry to tell you that, but you will find, if you look, you don't have to look for it, you may have already stumbled into it, that somebody claims that so-and-so in the recent years has invented Yoga Nidra. I understand that we respect and love and hold dearly people from whom we learn things. We all learn from teachers, and we appreciate and respect those people or that person. But when we go this far with it, and we're perpetuating a myth that this person has invented Yoga Nidra, it's like saying that the person has invented breathing. I'm going to do breathing practices because breathing practices have an effect on my autonomic and sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems and my brain functioning. So therefore I'm going to invent breathing. No. No, 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 no. Yoga Nidra, waking, dreaming, and deep sleep are simply not new. I'm just mentioning this to you so that you have a note there to yourself. Note that when you run into this and you think, wow, this seems odd, that you can remember that this crazy man in this presentation already mentioned this to you. And I do understand love and respect for people that we learn from, for our teachers. I do understand that. But somehow, sometimes these things in human cultures take a turn, don't they? And we end up with something that maybe was not intended early on in somebody who's trying to pass on teachings and principles, and it takes a funny twist. And then we end up with an inventor of deep sleep. No, no, no. Hello again. We all like brand name products. An example, I'm not going to say some brand names, I'm going to try not to, but one of the popular things I can remember learning in marketing classes decades ago, that marketing people are always trying to find a new product. One of the products that has come out as a new product is water. I can remember when there was no such thing as brand name bottles of water. It was invented. I don't remember which particular company invented it, but within the business schools of the world, this was used as an amazing, unbelievable example of marketing. We have actually got people spending more money on water than they are on gasoline for their cars. We've got people buying water. Now, I know maybe some of this water is really, really good special water that came from a special well, and maybe it's really true. I don't know. But we people, we just normal walking around people, we seem to love brand name products. I can remember a movement of generic foods decades ago, and packages in the grocery store just said sugar or salt or something like that. And mostly these programs failed after a period of time because people like the brand name products. There's something in our makeup, we like names. We like fancy, catchy names. So one of the things that has happened is we can end up with essentially brand name Yoga Nidra. I do so-and-so Yoga Nidra. I do brand name X Yoga Nidra. I do brand name Y Yoga Nidra. Which Yoga Nidra is better? If you think that the term Yoga Nidra refers to these particular sequences of moving your awareness and particular applications of disease solution or sankalpa or affirmations, if you believe it in that kind of way, then you can end up with a competitive marketplace. And in the marketplace now you can now say, you can now rank the products. Which is the best Yoga Nidra to do? And in doing that, unfortunately, what happens is we completely lose sight of the original meaning of what Yoga Nidra is. It is conscious deep sleep. It is a state of consciousness. And so we are going to give a brand name. We're going to get a trademark, essentially, on my version of sleep. Think about it. Think about it yourself. Don't just take my word from it. Does it make any sense at all to have brand name sleep? Now, I understand if you're in the hotel business, I've actually seen this. A hotel chain will market the kind of bed that they have in their hotel, and they'll end up with an advertising agency that will come up with a catchy phrase for how you can sleep better in their bed in their hotel. I'm okay with that. I'm not trying to change the hotel business, but what they are trying to do there is market a hotel. They're not giving a brand name to the sleep itself. They're not saying that I am inventing sleep. Nobody can invent sleep and then give Yoga Nidra a brand name. It's very, very unfortunately misleading. Just once again, please remember, Yoga Nidra is a state of consciousness. And it's neat. Pursue it. Find it. Enjoy it. Hello again. I've been dragging you through a lot of things of what Yoga Nidra is and is not, and what Yoga Nidra is beyond. And it leaves me finding difficulty finding what words to say to you of what it really is. And what keeps coming up for me as I've pondered this is just to say to you that the state of Yoga Nidra is absolutely profound. It is an absolutely profound state of consciousness. Nothing less than that. I have known people who practice the way that we're teaching you this for a period of months, and will do this 2 or 3, 4, 5 times a week, every week, for 6 months or maybe a year. and then my phone will ring, or I get an email message and a person says, something just happened, or comes by and visits. Something happened to me, I don't know what it was. And can I tell you about it? Maybe you can explain it to me. I say, yes, of course, tell me about it. And then the person will go on and on trying to explain that there was this something going on. It may be even tainted with a little bit of a subtle fear. They say, I could feel a sense of fear, but there was nothing that I was afraid of. I could feel a sense of it was like I had a little anger over something, but I was not mad about anything. And they're going on and on trying to describe that I cannot figure out what just happened to me. And I'll say, well, it sounds like maybe you fell asleep. And the person will say, no, I didn't just fall asleep. I'm telling you this story because this has happened many, many times with living, breathing human beings who have started to practice this, and sometimes it takes months of regular practice. And what happens is finally one day they actually literally have an experience of conscious deep sleep, and then come back into the waking state. And it's absolutely profound. It's indescribable. And yet they're trying to describe to me, tell me, they say to me, may I tell you what happened? And so please do. And then fumbling for words, trying to find words in the conscious waking state mind, trying to find words to describe that which is essentially indescribable, which is in effect that I was in deep sleep, but yet I was awake, and they don't know it. They don't know that that's what they're trying to explain. But they've been practicing this thing and say, this is a nice relaxation I've been doing for all these months. And now something has happened that I don't understand. Well, was it frustrating to you? Was it painful? No. It was one of the greatest things I've ever experienced. But I want to tell you about it, but I'm having trouble finding the words to explain it to you. And after they go on and on and on, I say, you know what I think you're telling me? To say, what? I said, I think you finally have experienced Yoga Nidra. And then typically there is a sort of huge sigh of relief and a big smile, very, very big smile. And then finally that person understands what Yoga Nidra is about. That all along it was a state of consciousness, and it's just through the efforts to try to experience that state of consciousness, the glimpses were coming slowly. There were glimpses of relaxation of the conscious mind, like when you listen to music. This is a wonderful thing to do. There were increasing glimpses of the reverie state, which is between waking and dreaming. And there was some increase in lucid dreaming, and there was some time along the way that I thought, oh, now I'm experiencing Yoga Nidra because I'm doing lucid dreaming. And no. You keep going. Wonderful experiences. And then finally the door opens and you have conscious deep sleep, where there are no pictures, there are no words, nothing going on. You literally are in deep sleep. But yet, paradoxically, unbelievably so, you were alert. And it's totally baffling to the external conscious waking state mind. And I'm not making these stories up. This literally has happened quite a few times with a person who keeps persisting with this stuff over a period of time, and then has this incredible thing that said, wow, there's really something to this. This is Yoga Nidra. It is profound. So all this stuff that I just dragged you through in these first presentations was, I suppose, to bring you to this point just so I can say to you, please play with this stuff. And as best you can, hear what I'm telling you, that Yoga Nidra is a state of consciousness. And that state has to do not with waking, not with dreaming, but with deep sleep that is done consciously. Why Yoga Nidra? Question. How does an adept, how does a yogi, a master yogi, a master adept, how does such a yogi sleep? Answer, consciously. How do the rest of us usually sleep most of the time? Like a log, completely inert. Completely inert. But we can get glimpses of Yoga Nidra. We can get glimpses of what it's like to sleep like an adept. And this is called Yoga Nidra. It really is profound. Give yourself the gift of playing with this, please. Hello. We're talking about Yoga Nidra as conscious deep sleep. We're saying that there is waking and there is dreaming and there is deep sleep. You may wonder, where does all of this come from? Where do we know about this? In the various yogic texts, we find Om mantra mentioned. Here's a little symbol of the Om mantra. And notice on the Om mantra that there's sort of three parts here, and then there's a fourth part here, which is this little dot symbol on top. And this is a little bit like what I'm doing with my fingers. So there's waking, there's dreaming, it's upside down. There's waking, there's dreaming, there's deep sleep, and there's this fourth state that's called Turiya, which literally means fourth. And it's the capital S self, the Atman, it's the pure consciousness. So where do we find Yoga Nidra in here? It's conscious deep sleep. It's not the waking state. It's not laying in bed asleep having dreams. It's deep sleep, formless, pictureless, wordless, and yet in Yoga Nidra we are conscious. You can find this Om described or mentioned or outlined to various degrees in the Yoga Sutras, it's in Bhagavad Gita, it's in many of the texts that are called Upanishads. But there is one of those Upanishads that's called Mandukya Upanishad that is only 12 verses long, and it's an outline of those levels of consciousness. We'll put it in the resources here so you can download a written version of this and look through it. But this, I wanted to mention to you that there is a place where you can look and see directly these levels of consciousness mapped out. And what the yogi is ultimately trying to do is to be aware of all of the levels of consciousness. Yoga Nidra is the awareness of the conscious deep sleep. That paradoxically odd situation where you are awake but yet nothing's going on. You are in deep sleep and yet paradoxically you are alert and awake and know what's going on. Mandukya Upanishad. In the first level, this waking state, the plane of reality, fancy word is called Vaishnavar. In that plane of reality, we are using our senses. We're smelling, tasting, seeing, touching, hearing. We are using our active mind. Our ego is present. In the dreaming state, ego is present. There's a me who's having a dream. There's a mind that is active in the dream. And in the dream, we are using our senses. But when we go into deep sleep, and that plane of reality, for what it's worth, is called Tejasa. The fancy names are not terribly important to do the Yoga Nidra, but it's nice, and there's some comfort in knowing that there's actually some support going on behind this. There is some support. And it's not just this one guy babbling his personal theory of this. There's a long ancient history of these levels of consciousness going back thousands of years when the yogis, sages, rishis, seers first discovered these levels of consciousness. And then that third level, the plane of reality, is called prajna. What you and I usually are doing when we are aware of the level of reality called prajna, what we are most commonly doing is doing deep sleep. We're laying in bed, curled up with our pillow in deep sleep and not dreaming, and we're not active out here in the world. But what the yogi is trying to do is to do that consciously, and when you do that, that's called Yoga Nidra. Anyway, just to introduce you to the Mandukya Upanishad, which is a place which summarizes in very succinct form all of these levels of consciousness. Look at the resource, download it and print it out and read through it. You'll enjoy seeing that there is an ancient resource that outlines these levels of consciousness. The Mandukya Upanishad, and there you will find some philosophical support for Yoga Nidra. And have fun with this. Don't make a big deal out of it. Just read it and enjoy it, and enjoy the practice. Hello again. I know in some sense we've already talked about this or touched on it, but I wanted to make sure that we absolutely covered that the yogi wants to consciously live in and practice within all of these levels of consciousness. Here we're obviously talking about Yoga Nidra, we're talking about conscious deep sleep. But the yogi wants to practice mindfulness or meditation in action or karma yoga right in the middle of doing our actions in the world. And we're doing that in the conscious waking state mind. So the yogi wants to be doing sadhana practices right in the middle of daily life, right while we're doing everything in our families and in our work life and out in our community. The yogi wants to do that there. And the yogi wants to be aware in daily life of the unconscious processing that's coming forward. That those little ideas that just before they turn into speech and actions that I'm going to do out here, I'm going to do this behavior out here, I'm going to say these words to that person, and gradually we start to intelligently infer that process that's going on behind the scenes that other people don't know what's going on. I'm chattering in my unconscious mind, and we become aware of that. We practice ahimsa internally, non-harming. We practice satya, truthfulness. We internally catch ourselves when our mind is starting to go off and do something goofy. We're becoming aware of our unconscious processing level of mind, which is a little bit like the microchip in your computer or your cell phone, where it's doing the processing. So, and we do some of what we were talking about earlier, that the popular term is lucid dreaming. You want to be aware of that level of reality too. And the subject matter of Yoga Nidra is that we want to be consciously aware of that latent deep sleep state that we've talked about is very paradoxical. So there's nothing really new in this little presentation here. I just wanted to make sure that this point was made again, that we're not ignoring the waking state and we're not ignoring the dreaming state. We're focusing on Yoga Nidra, which is conscious deep sleep, and the yogi wants to gradually learn to be aware of and train the mind in all three of these levels, and eventually leads us towards the realization of that fourth level, which is really not a level, but is the pure consciousness itself. In the metaphor of our computer or cell phone, it's the electricity, it's the life force that is behind deep sleep, that is behind dreaming, and that is behind waking. And so we gradually want to be aware of all four. And most importantly here, it's the fourth one, the capital S self, the pure consciousness, that is aware of the other three. Practice all three. Okay, just a reminder. And be gentle with yourself. Just be aware. Constant awareness is what we're trying to do, not in an obsessive kind of troublesome mind, anxiety-producing kind of way. Just gently aware that I'm in the waking state and I'm doing these activities and my mind is operating. And when we're going to take a little nap, you know, we're going to take a little nap on the couch and a daydream, we're becoming aware of that unconscious processing mind, and we cultivate the awareness of conscious deep sleep. Just attempt to do it, and be aware that ultimately what I'm trying to do is have some awareness of all three of these states. Okay? Gently, gently, gently. Bye-bye. Hello again. I wanted to tell you something a little bit about Tantra and the three cities, C-I-T-I-E-S, like New York City. From the perspective of Tantra, there is Shakti, the divine feminine that manifests outward. The pinnacle of insight of Tantra is that Shiva and Shakti are one and the same. Shiva is the pure potential, and Shakti is the manifesting force that goes outward. When we talk about waking, dreaming, deep sleep, and the fourth state, Turiya, it has a feel as if we're moving inward. I'm moving inward from waking, through dreaming, and into conscious deep sleep, and beyond that is this pure consciousness. In the tantric rendering of this, we're saying the same thing, only from an ever slightly different perspective. We are saying that there is, in Tantra, there is one consciousness that dwells in those three cities. Instead of going 1, 2, 3, 4 on the journey inward, we're saying that there is one that operates outward. There's one life force, one consciousness, one Shiva, that through the potency of manifesting, called feminine or Shakti, moves outward through this level called Prajna, and outward through Tejasa, and out into the world called Vaishvanara. And so it's the same kind of thing, just from a different perspective. And I wanted to introduce that to you because you may have encountered some language about Tantra before and the path of Tantra, and that what we're talking about with Yoga Nidra is completely compatible with that. It's just that it's entering it, looking at it from a slightly different way. There's still waking, there's still dreaming, there's still deep sleep, and there's still Turiya. But the consciousness, the Shakti, manifests outward, and then manifests outward, and then manifests outward as a me. And here I am. And I am being aware of the one who dwells in the three cities. It's called Tripura. Pura means city, tri is three. So this is 1, 2, 3 cities. And this one consciousness is operating out through the three cities. So you can hold this in the context of Tantra. Not going into great depth with this, but wanted to touch on it for you. Yoga Nidra is one of the three cities in which Shakti operates. Okay? Hello again. We have talked about how the fact that Yoga Nidra has something to do with conscious deep sleep. There is waking, there is dreaming, there is deep sleep. There's the fourth state of consciousness beyond that, but we're talking about conscious deep sleep. And to understand these things, often we use metaphors. Here's a metaphor having to do with 4 aspects of the ocean. Go to the ocean, and there's an area where most of us like to hang out. It's the beach. The beach that's immediately beside the edge of the ocean. The waves come up and you can walk on this part of the beach. This is equivalent to Vaishvanara, the waking state of consciousness that we're in most of the time, like right now. And then there's the exact place where that beach meets the ocean, and the water comes and it laps right up on the beach. There's the transition phase there. And then you go out into the water, the place where we can swim around, the part that we know about. We can have a little boat, or we can use our surfboard, and we're right in that area of the ocean. It's another area. You go out further into the ocean, and when you go out a few hundred yards or meters, and you go down into the ocean, you go down below the surface of the waves, and there's a stillness down there. And this is a little bit like the prajna level that we go to. There's no activity like is near the shoreline. There's no waves that are bouncing and coming and going and coming and going like the surface of the ocean. It's down deep. It's just a metaphor to hold this. So what we are doing with Yoga Nidra, we are not spending our time at this moment, we are not spending our time along the shoreline of activities of the external world. We're not spending our time in that transition place where the shoreline meets the waves coming in. We're not in that popular place where there's all the activity of waves coming and going, which is where we have dreaming state. We're going out there, we're going offshore a little bit, and we're dropping down deep into the depths of the stillness and the silence. And this is where prajna is. This is where we find conscious deep sleep. Just a metaphor. Your mind may like one of these metaphors that we talk about, and just allow yourself to enjoy that metaphor, and allow that metaphor to be a companion for you. So if you enjoy this metaphor of the beach, literally ponder about it yourself and how it can be used as a symbol for the waking, the dreaming, and the deep sleep, which is offshore a little distance and down deep where things are very, very still. And that's where I'm going for Yoga Nidra. Okay? Enjoy. Bye-bye. Hello again. Here's another metaphor about Yoga Nidra. And once again, these are just silly little stories, and allow, if one of them catches your attention, you just naturally remember that and say, okay, this is what this is about. This is about parachuting. So if you're going to go parachuting, you may jump off of a mountain, or you may get into an airplane. You may get into an airplane that has quite a few seats in there, and there's a lot of other people. It has a couple big noisy engine, and it takes off, and it climbs and it climbs and it climbs, and everybody hooks up to their thing like you see in the movies, and everybody jumps out, and there's a whole bunch of people jumping out of the airplane. You may go up in a small plane, and it's just you, and you're on the edge of the airplane. You may read books about parachuting. You may go to air shows and watch many people doing air shows, and they're jumping out of airplanes, and you can see them with their colorful parachutes, and they're gliding all around, and they may have a camera on their head, and you're seeing the YouTube videos of people parachuting and all this beautiful stuff. You may study the aerodynamics of parachuting. This is what we are doing. We live in the waking state called Vaishnara. We know something about the dreaming state, the active unconscious, and then there's this theory of the deep sleep state, what we know as deep sleep, and then here's this silly conversation about falling asleep but staying awake. But if you want to understand parachuting, all the study of the mathematics of aerodynamics, and all the videos, and all the airplane rides, all of that is absolutely useless until comes the moment when you have to jump out of the airplane. And only then do you really understand what parachuting is about. This is what Yoga Nidra is like. Sorry, can't tell you exactly what it's like to be in conscious deep sleep. To the waking state conscious mind, it is completely baffling. The first few times that somebody actually experiences the state of Yoga Nidra out of conscious choice, out of doing the practices that get us there, the first few times, then afterwards, it's just bewildering trying to find the words to explain to another person what just happened. And what we're looking for is words to explain what seems impossible to the waking state mind, that I actually was in deep sleep, yet I was not asleep. It sounds very odd, doesn't it? If you want to know what that's like, all you can do ultimately is keep getting up in the airplane, keep going to the top of the mountain, or wherever you're jumping from. And somewhere along the way, you simply jump out into the parachuting, and you parachute outward into Yoga Nidra. If you like the metaphor, just let it sit with you. And remember, jump out of the airplane, jump out, and fall into conscious deep sleep, like you're parachuting. And enjoy the ride down. Hello again. Here's another little story. See if you like it. Imagine that you're on a busy city street. Just a lot of activity, cars and buses and people, and there's all this activity. And you come by a theater, a very large theater. In my fantasy, this is one of my favorites. In my fantasy, it's a really fancy, nice theater. An old style of theater with lots of wood inside. You know, walls and furniture and things and stuff. And you step off the city street, off the noise of the busy city street, and you're in the lobby of the theater. This is a little bit like coming into your home and going to your meditation seat. The busy world is out there, and now you've come to this quiet little sanctuary that's the lobby. And then from the lobby inside of the theater, you go into the theater and you sit down and you take a seat. And you're looking, and in front of you is the stage. And the curtain is closed in front of you. You're sitting there in your seat waiting for the play to start. And then the play starts, and the curtains, and I imagine them as big, heavy looking, nice red colored curtains. The curtains go open, and there's the props and the set back there, and the actors come out on the stage, and the play begins. And I'm sitting there in my seat watching the dance go by. And this is a little bit like sitting there being witness to the waking state of consciousness. I've left the busy city out there. I came into the lobby in the quiet area. I came and I sat in my seat, and the curtain opens, and here is the play. And the actors are coming and going, and the storyline is playing out there. And I get this idea. Imagine that you're sitting in your seat in the theater. The other people are sitting there with you in the theater. The play is going on. You get up from your seat. You walk down the aisle and to the front of the stage, and there's some steps. And imagine that you walk up those steps, and now you are on the stage. And the actors on the stage don't really even notice you. They're doing their drama. They're doing what they're doing. And you just walk right by them. You walk through them to the back of the stage. And at the back of the stage, behind all the actors and behind all the props and things like that, there's another curtain back there. And you go behind, you peek, and you separate that curtain, and you go behind that curtain that's at the back of the stage. You have now gone beyond the actors on the stage. And this is a magical theater, and you discover that behind that rear curtain, there's not just an empty room, but it opens into a vast desert with a beautiful starlit sky, and there's millions of stars in the sky, and it's a dark night like out in a desert that has a beauty of a night. There may or may not be a moon in that, but it's very, very still. And this is like the Yoga Nidra. We leave the city street, we leave the activity. We come into the quiet of the lobby, we take our seat. We get up from our seat, we walk up onto the stage, through the actors and the prop and the storyline going on. We go out the back curtain, and here we are in this vast area of stillness. This is the Yoga Nidra. It's behind both of the curtains. It's the curtain that opens and reveals the active unconscious, reveals the dreaming state. We don't get caught in that dream. We go right through it and out the back curtain and into the perfect stillness and silence of the formless reality. And this is the plane called prajna. This is where there is deep sleep, and this is where we are going with Yoga Nidra. Again, ponder it, think about it, let your own creative imagination play with this metaphor. If you like the metaphor, then let it stick with you just as a reminder of this is where I'm trying to go. I'm trying to go behind. I've left the busy street and I'm trying to go behind the actors on the stage to that perfect stillness. Yoga Nidra. Okay? Enjoy. Enjoy that stillness behind the stage. Hello again. I have here with me a phone. Now, phones and computers are very similar, but I wanted to talk to you about the phone or the computer in the context. It's another metaphor in the context of Yoga Nidra. How does this thing operate? Well, you see, I have a bunch of apps on here. It has a screen. If I turn on the photos or something like that, I can look at photos. I can watch a little video on there. I can do those sorts of things. I can talk to somebody. We don't use that. I can text with somebody. I can actually use it as a telephone and speak into the microphone and listen to the sound coming out of the earphone sort of thing. And this is a little bit like the waking state of consciousness of the cell phone or the computer. Computer, same thing, but here's the cell phone. And then also on my surface level, on my waking state, I have all of these apps, and I can choose an app and I can do various different things with it. Inside of here, if I open any one of these particular applications, then inside something happens in the microchip in there somehow that changes what the computer part of this thing is doing inside. If I turn the phone off, I'll just turn it. I'll just turn the thing off. Say, so now pretend the phone is off. All of my data is still there. My music is still there. My pictures are still there. My apps are still there. But I have sort of turned the phone off. They're not doing anything. Now, ultimately, you know, who am I in relation to this metaphor? If this is a symbol, I can say, well, there is the level of this surface stuff that I was looking at a moment ago where I use the phone and all of its activities to talk and look and text and do all of those things. That's the surface level. That's the waking state. The equivalent of the dreaming state is all the invisible processing that the microchip is doing inside of this thing. And subtler than that, there is a latent level that is a hard drive or something like that where it's doing this. Nothing is happening on the surface. Ultimately, who am I? Ultimately, I am the pure consciousness. It's like our friend the Om mantra, where we say there's 1, 2, 3, 4 parts of the Om mantra, and this little dot is the symbol of the pure consciousness. That's the self, the capital S self, or the Atman. This is waking, this is dreaming, this is deep sleep. This is the domain of Yoga Nidra, of conscious deep sleep. And so it's like going to sleep with our phone, but yet paradoxically remaining awake. Ultimately, who I am is the electricity that is operating all of this thing. It's just a metaphor, but ultimately it's the electricity. So Yoga Nidra is not taking us all the way to self-realization. It's not taking us all the way to Purusha, or pure consciousness, or Atman, or Shakti, or Shiva, or God, or capital T truth, or capital R reality, all these different ways of talking. It's stopping short of there. But it is the fully latent unconscious of the level of not waking, not dreaming, but of conscious deep sleep. And it's approximately like the phone in this state, except when my phone is like this, it appears to be inert and I can't do anything with it. When we do this with Yoga Nidra, it's not latent, it's not inert. And as we've said before, it's utterly baffling to the conscious waking state mind to even talk about this, because how can my cell phone have any consciousness, any activity at all when it's basically off? You see, you and I, we are so identified with our bodies, with our personalities, with all of our wonderful, wonderful traits that we have. We're so identified with those that this to the surface level me seems inconceivable. But then when you play with it and you experiment with it, practice, and then over time you have those moments, those glimpses of experience where you come out of it and you're back out here and your applications are running again. You say, wow, something very strange just happened. It's like, where did I go? I was gone, but I wasn't gone. Where did I go? Mind says, I had to have gone somewhere, because out here in this plane of reality, we are in space. There's over there and there's over here. There's left and there's right and there's up and there's down, and there's distance away from me. We live in a world of dimensionality, and we live in a world of time. There was back then, and there's the future, and there's now, and all of this. This thing seemed to have nothing to do with time. It seemed to have nothing to do with space, and yet we say, where did I go? Well, it's a little bit like consciously being aware of your cell phone, even though it's off, and it's not off. So play with the metaphor. If you enjoy this metaphor, think about it. And then just use it as a little memory, just as a little memory of how you can ponder about the nature of Yoga Nidra. Well, now, while you're doing the Yoga Nidra, while you're doing the practice, don't be sitting there thinking about a cell phone or an airplane or a beach or any of these things, or a theater. Don't be thinking about these at that time. These are things to ponder about the nature of, well, what is this man talking about? I'm supposed to lay here and fall asleep and stay awake. Why am I doing this? And you allow one of these metaphors to sit with you, and it becomes your favorite metaphor, or one of them, or maybe you like them all. And it helps your mind, your conscious waking state mind, it helps your mind be happy that, wait a minute, there is some sense to this, and then it's what's making sense to you. It doesn't matter what makes sense to me. What matters is which of these little stories is of curiosity to you, that speaks to you, that says, wow, when I think about like this, this kind of makes sense. I think I'm going to practice this. Let me see if I can be a great yogi and sleep sometimes the way the yogis, the way the masters, the sages, the adepts, the way they sleep. Maybe I can have a glimpse of conscious deep sleep. Yoga Nidra. Enjoy. Hello again. Pratyahara is the withdrawal of the senses. It's very, very easy initially when we start learning meditation to think that pratyahara means that I'm closing the door on my room. Maybe sometimes people can't handle the sounds around, so we'll put earplugs in to block off the sounds and things like this. We'll put, what do you call those things you put over your eyes? Little sleeping things that people use sometimes on airplanes to cover their eyes, eye masks or something. And so we use methods like that to block it out. This is not actually withdrawal of the senses. There's an old metaphor of the withdrawal of the senses that is of the turtle. When you see a turtle, and it takes its head and its little arms and legs and it withdraws them inward. It pulls them inward. And this is pratyahara. What we're doing in Yoga Nidra, the methods we're going to teach you, what we're doing is we are moving attention around internally. We're moving attention around in certain ways. And if we do that, then the pratyahara, the withdrawal of the senses, actually occurs somewhat naturally. If you're moving your attention through awareness of points within the body, or you're moving your awareness mentally, imagining your awareness going up and down the subtle spine called sushumna, if you're doing that, then the external world out there seems to just fade away. And this is an aspect of pratyahara. The reason I'm mentioning pratyahara to you here is just so you have it in your awareness that this is a part of what we're doing. When we go into conscious deep sleep, you already know this because we all know what it's like to go to sleep. And when you go to sleep, sometimes you can fall asleep. There can be a television going very loudly and you just don't even hear it. You start to nod off and go to sleep. Somebody speaks to you, calls your name, you just don't even hear it. The external world ceases to exist for us. This is pratyahara, except pratyahara is done willfully, choicefully, intentionally. So you don't have to think about pratyahara while you're doing the Yoga Nidra, but remember that on the journey to deep sleep, whether it's lethargic, unconscious deep sleep, or it's conscious deep sleep as Yoga Nidra, that the sensory experiences that we have out there in the world, they recede, they naturally fall away. Pratyahara, it's the coming inward of the senses. And in my little fantasy, it's a very cute little turtle. Just, you know, you got to have fun with this stuff. Just be like a turtle and pull the attention in and allow your attention to move through your inner parts as the journey goes, and then fall into conscious deep sleep beyond the pratyahara. Okay? See you soon. Hello again. Meditation and Yoga Nidra are companions. Now, often in common language, I even find myself doing this sometimes. I will refer to it as Yoga Nidra meditation. Sometimes just out of habits of language, we kind of goof things up and cross the words over with one another. But if we take the term dhyana, which is the Sanskrit word for actual meditation, dhyana and Yoga Nidra are different from one another. Yet they are companions. You don't do them both at literally the same time. They're two separate practices, but they are companions. So you don't do one or the other in life. You say, well, I used to do meditation. I don't do meditation anymore. Now I do Yoga Nidra. Or I don't need to do Yoga Nidra. I'm already doing meditation. Here's a little picture of levels of consciousness. And so here is the conscious mind. Here is the unconscious mind. This out here is what you and I do in the waking state of consciousness. This was when we recede inward to dreaming, and this is where we recede inward to deep sleep. So this is the domain of Yoga Nidra. This is the domain of meditation. What we do in meditation is we sit straight and still and comfortable. We're in the conscious mind. We get the conscious mind to be stable. We get the body to be still. We get the breath to be smooth. And we allow the conscious mind to be quiet and calm. And then what we do is we allow this to expand open so that all of this will come forward. So we're allowing the unconscious to come forward to me, and while I am in the waking state using the conscious mind. The unconscious comes forward and it's an expansion. So through this expansion, eventually there is no unconscious. We become willing to see it all. The conscious expands and we're willing to see it all. And then ultimately we come to experience the center of consciousness, the Purusha or the Atman. This is what we do in meditation. What we do in Yoga Nidra is similar to what we, as I've been talking, it's similar to what we do when we go to sleep every night and we put our head on the pillow and we fall asleep. We leave the waking state of consciousness. We leave it behind. We leave behind the dreaming state of consciousness and we go into the latent state of the unconscious. And this is called Yoga Nidra. So you can see that they are sort of on two different ends of a kind of spectrum of consciousness, you can say. And they're two different ends. They're two different practices. Now, when you're sitting for meditation, you may move your attention through your body in certain kind of ways. You may hold your attention in your heart, you know, or your eyebrow center because you're oriented more to a feeling emotion person or to being a thinking person. That may be true in meditation. But when you fall asleep, your consciousness naturally comes to rest. In the waking state, we naturally operate more here. And in deep sleep, we tend to operate more here. So when you fall into, in the guided practices we're giving you, we're going to invite you to come here and to empty, empty, empty. And there we're falling into deep sleep, consciously, Yoga Nidra. So the two are different. The meditation, the dhyana, is conscious mind, and you allow it to explain and to expand. And in that sense, I don't mean this rigidly, but in that sense, during meditation time, sleep is the enemy. You try to, during meditation, you use all of your gentle, loving to yourself willpower to remain in the conscious waking state and to allow the conscious mind to become quiet so that there can be this expansion. In the Yoga Nidra, you intentionally leave and fall into deep sleep. They are companions to one another. Okay? That's the point that I'm trying to make. So do meditation practice, do Yoga Nidra practice. Let each of them become a part of your life. Okay? They go together. Hello again. I know I've used this word before, but I want to emphasize it here, that consciousness is receding in Yoga Nidra. We've been talking about waking, dreaming, and deep sleep. Think for a moment, if you will, as a sort of trapezoid pyramid sort of thing, just a visual way of holding this. In fact, I can take our friendly circle chart here and turn it in this kind of way, and you get the idea that up here is the waking state of consciousness using the conscious mind. It's a certain level of functioning of mind. And below that, imagine that this is the active unconscious, just like that thing I had. And below that is the latent unconsciousness. And the latent unconsciousness, the latent unconscious. So we have the waking state conscious mind, we have the active unconscious, and we have the latent unconscious. Just imagine that in that kind of way. And when we are in the waking state of consciousness, we are actually using those other levels right now. Right now I'm speaking to you, but the words, my English language words, are coming from the storage place down here. They're coming through the, metaphorically speaking, microprocessor of my active unconscious mind, and then it's coming forward to this top of this little symbol we're talking about, and into my conscious mind, so I can speak to you out here. So all of these three levels are going right now. For me and for you, those three levels are going on. And if we lay down, we put our head down on our pillow and we doze off and we're having a nice little dream, what happens is that this top level recedes back into the lower levels. And now there's only two levels functioning. There's the active unconscious functioning and the latent unconscious functioning. So I'm sitting there having a dream here, and all of a sudden a new character, a new friend shows up in your dream. Where did that friend come from? It came from the seed memory of your friend in the latent unconscious. It came forward. But now this level up here has receded. Consciousness has receded, so instead of three levels of our symbolic pyramid, now we only have two levels of functioning. So there's a receding phenomenon going on. And then you're laying there with your head on your little pillow and you're having a nice dream, or you're having a nightmare, hopefully not. But you're doing that, and then you're going to fall into deep sleep. What happens? The activity in this middle ground, we've already dropped the waking state conscious mind level. This recedes too, and now we're down here, and only this level of the three is doing anything. Of course, what's it doing? It's doing nothing. Because the level that's doing something, called dreaming, has receded. The level that is in the conscious mind and using the sensory organs in the brain and the physical body, that has receded inward. So in one level of being, conscious waking state, we're using all three of these levels. And when we're dreaming, this one has switched off and we're using only two levels. And then when we fall into conscious deep sleep, we're only using the sort of base of our pretend pyramid that we're talking about. So there's a receding phenomenon going in. Anyway, I just wanted to touch again. I've used this word before, receding. And this is an image. This is an image. I'm not asking you to do an imagery with this, but it's a picture metaphor that helps this become more understandable. Right now I'm using all three levels of this thing. If I take a nap and I'm dreaming, I'm only using two levels. This one has receded, and in conscious deep sleep or lethargic deep sleep, these two recede back in. Simple principle. Consciousness itself is receding inward through these levels and layers, coming from being out here in the world to active Yoga Nidra, conscious deep sleep. Okay? Play with it. Play with it and observe this in yourself. Don't take my word for it. This is not just a theory to be memorized. Ponder with it. Look at it in yourself and see it for yourself. Say, wow, there's something to this. There really is these major levels. And consciousness, awareness itself, my, really is receding inward in this kind of way. Please, play with it yourself and have fun with it, okay? Hello again. In this level of Yoga Nidra, of conscious deep sleep, thoughts are formless. This can be a rather subtle point that is very commonly very difficult to understand because we just never think of reality and mind and personality in this kind of way. So all of a sudden somebody starts talking about like this, it sounds a little bit foreign. But at the level we're talking about, thoughts are formless. I was talking to you about the receding inward through the levels. In the waking state out here, people have form. Objects have form. Furniture has form. The food that I'm eating has form. When I recede down into the dream and I'm having a nap and I'm having my dream and I'm dreaming of people and places and objects, or maybe I'm at a restaurant with my friend and I'm having a nice meal, the meal has form. Now I understand that it's only a dream meal and my friend that I'm with in the restaurant is only a dream friend. But within the dream, that person is real. We can be having a conversation. We can be holding hands. We can be waving at one another like this. Whether we're physically doing it with a physical hand like this, I can wave at you, or I can, in my mind, have a daydream or a sleep dream, and within the dream, I can dream at you. But let me pose a question to you like this. You're laying there and you're having your dream. You could be out here awake, but you're laying there having your dream. And all of a sudden, a new friend pops up into that dream. You with me? You're sitting there with one friend, and all of a sudden, another friend shows up in the dream. Where did that friend come from to be able to enter into the dream? It came from that ground level, which is the seed level. It's the level at which we experience deep sleep. But it's operating right now as you and I are sitting here together. It's operating for you and it's operating for me, this ground level, this third level down here. It's operating and it's in what we can call seed format. Think of a flower or a weed if you want, or a plant, a nice tomato plant that's growing, or a beautiful flower. And so there's a seed, and then it's in fertilizer, and the soil is right, and the water comes, and the seed grows outward into a plant. The seed memories of your friend go outward and grow into an active dream about your friend. And now you're dreaming about your friend, complete with features and body and everything, and conversation and personality. It all comes to life. And then in your dream, when you fall asleep, When you fall from dreaming reality, you're having the meal with your friends in the restaurant, a new friend comes in, now you're all sitting at the table enjoying one another, and all of a sudden in your dream you fall into deep sleep, whether consciously or lethargically. When you fall into sleep, what happens to your friends? They go back, they recede back into seed form. And later, when you're thinking, when it's time for those friends to come back in your mind, you're out here in the world later, and this person, you see this person down the street, the image comes into your eyes, it triggers, it goes down to that latent place down there, there's a recognition, and you say, hello, friend. And so this process goes on. The seed comes to life, and you say hello to your friend. And then later on, when you part company, you go your separate ways, you get involved in doing something else, and your active thought of your friend drifts away. Where does it go? It goes back down to the seed level. This is a little bit like the memory that's on your cell phone or the memory that's on your computer. It has a hard drive of some kind, whatever that is, and those things are stored there. If I have a picture, I'm not going to show you a picture, but if I have a picture that I've taken of my friend and it's on my cell phone and my cell phone's off, where is the picture of my friend? You see people do this. You say, let me show you pictures of my children. And you grab your cell phone, you push the button, and you say, look, and you look and you say, oh, what a cute little baby that is. Now you see the baby on the screen of the cell phone. Where was the baby a few minutes ago? The baby was in seed form at that ground level. In computer language, I'm no computer geek person, but as I understand it, it's stored in what are called bits and bytes, little tiny, so it's a picture it's 100 kilobyte or kilobit picture. You can look at the number of bytes that the picture is. And so when it's in its formless form on the hard drive, what is the form of that formless form? It's mathematical formula on the computer. And it's just a metaphor. But on the mathematics, if you were to look, if a technical person knew how to do this, and they wrote on sheets of paper the binary numbers, we would see page after page, we'd see 100,000 little zeros and ones that are mathematical numbers. And this whole big, huge, long number together, when it comes to life, takes on a picture of your baby. And you say, oh, isn't that cute? Well, that's when it has come into form in the dream. When it's not in form in the dream and you can't see the picture of the person, it's in a formless form. This is what we're talking about at the seed level. I'm not trying to say that we literally are nothing but computers, but it's a metaphor. It's a principle of holding what the sages have been telling us for thousands of years, that at this deep level, everything is in a formless form. It's in seed level, and the seed level is formless. A little bit analogous to a picture you have of somebody that's stored on your cell phone, and then you show it to another person. The seed comes to life and turns into the picture. You turn your phone off or go to another app. The picture on the screen disappears and goes back into seed form. This is what we're talking about. Now, through Yoga Nidra, the significance of this mostly has to do with this. Through the act of going to Yoga Nidra, you are consciously aware of the seed level of samskaras. Now, when they're in the seed level, you don't recognize people, you don't recognize objects and things, you just don't recognize them as such because they're still at seed level. But there's a certain, I use the word magic just because it's playful and I like the word magic. The magic of it is that when you repeatedly visit this level of Yoga Nidra, this is the place where our seeds of karma, called samskaras, are stored. It's this whole karmashaya, it's this whole field of seeds. And they're just waiting for the opportunity to sprout out here in the world, or to sprout inside of a dream. The yogis say that the dreaming state and the waking state out here are very, very similar to one another. The truth, the reality, the capital S self, the Atman, the Purusha, the Brahman, the Shiva, the Shakti, all of those words, the pure consciousness is way beyond all of this. But we need to understand that this process is going on so that we can do the meditation, so that we can do the Yoga Nidra. We want to get beyond the seed level. But when we're in Yoga Nidra, when we are in the state of conscious deep sleep, the magical, beautiful thing that happens is that it has an effect of attenuating or weakening those seeds. So if those seeds are colored, if those seeds are weeds, and they're the seeds of my bad habits, my attractions and aversions that are actually cause me trouble in life, through the act of doing Yoga Nidra and going to that level, those seeds tend to weaken. They start to lose their power. It's not that you have psychoanalyzed some problem in life and now I have found the solution from my childhood to this particular problem. It's not that kind of process. It's, and again, playfully said, it's the magic of Yoga Nidra that the coloring, the attraction, the aversions, the fears just start attenuating. And then when you're out here in the external world, all of a sudden you notice, I used to respond to that person in a particular way, or that memory, or that fear that I had, and it seems to be going away, and I don't know where it's going. I don't know why. And it can be, often is, it's what it's supposed to happen. It is that the coloring of the seed samskaras, the seed memories, is weakening. It's attenuating. It's thinning out. The metaphor that the true self, the pure consciousness, is like the sun and clouds have come. A big storm has come and clouded over the sun. The sun is still there, but it's been clouded over. This is a process of thinning out the clouds. And it's not that you go to every individual cloud and thin it out. Oh, I'm going to get rid of that cloud. It's not that kind of process. But the weather, just like when you watch the weather, the storm goes by and here comes the bright sun again, and the sun was there all along. It's this kind of process. It's the magic of Yoga Nidra. The practice of going to conscious deep sleep has the effect of weakening the seeds that are in our latent unconsciousness. And you notice the effect in your own life yourself. Not because I or somebody else or yogis from the past have told us this. It's in your own life, in your own experiment, your own practice. Okay? Seeds, they are formless. And they weaken through Yoga Nidra. Enjoy. Hello again. You may have heard the term archetypes. It comes from the field of psychology. I think the main person who was talking about archetypes is the psychologist Carl Jung. But anyway, archetypes, there are seeds of archetypes, and these can be dealt with and changed with through Yoga Nidra. So an example of an archetype is a teacher. You have a tendency to be a teacher. So if you're a mother, you're teaching a child. You may be a school teacher and you're teaching in school. You may be a meditation teacher and you're teaching meditation. You're teaching many, many different things, but the idea of the archetype of teaching is the tendency to enjoy teaching. Another one that is talked about a lot in psychology is the warrior. The warrior archetype, and it's also a seed that says it just loves taking on a good cause and being a warrior to right some wrong in the world or something like that in some way. There's a helper archetype. There's the tendency to want to help or serve other people. Maybe it's in a healthy way. It's the enjoyment of nursing a friend who has gone through a medical situation. And so it plays out in different ways, but there's an archetype there then, and this can be a seed. Notice what happens when you go to a movie. You say what type or what genre of movie it is. somebody says, I like action movies, and every action movie you go to, it's basically the same storyline. There's a bad guy and there's a good guy, and he saves the day, or she saves the day. There's romantic comedies. I know a lot of people who like romantic comedies. The storyline is essentially the same, isn't it? It's the same storyline. It's the same archetype. So archetypes that we have are seeds. So there's a seed. There may be a particular way in which that archetype played out in my life, and so I have a detailed relationship between me and that person, but it's a playing out of this particular archetype. Or it may be a different archetype and it plays out with different people in different ways. Sometimes I hear this from a person who worked in a job in a particular kind of organization, and it didn't go very well, and they had a bad boss, and there were problems, and left that job and said, I'm getting out of that place, and finally said, now I'm free from that organization. And a year or two later, what have we done? We have reinvented essentially the same situation in a different organization. We move out of it's unfortunate to see it, but we all know that it happens. We have a marriage, a relationship marriage that's not working out. It ends up in divorce. And sometimes one can unintentionally, accidentally repeat that pattern again. And before you know it, you're in another comparable, similar relationship. The principle here I'm just trying to talk about is that there's an archetype. There's an archetypal kind of habit that we form. And these archetypes can be changed by Yoga Nidra. And once again, it doesn't mean I say, okay, now I'm going to meditate on this archetype. That may be a very useful practice, but that's done more in the conscious waking state, and it's meditation, it's dhyana, or you're pondering your way through it, and you could call it self-therapy, you can call it internal dialogue or contemplation. These are yogic methods of dealing with things on the more surface level of the conscious waking state mind. That's not what we're doing with Yoga Nidra. And so no, we're not practicing Yoga Nidra on that particular archetype. But we become, when we're in our waking state, conscious mind, we become more aware of our archetypes, and we're seeing that my habits that are archetypes are attenuating. Not just particular habits, but whole generalized tendencies that are archetypes. And those archetypes are normally in seed form, and unconsciously we're just out in the world looking for one more way to play out this drama again, to play out this archetype. And through Yoga Nidra, conscious deep sleep, over a period of time, these can weaken. The archetypes. They are in seed form, they come to life, and they play out in the world. Okay? Another beautiful aspect of the, again, I like the word, another beautiful aspect of the magic of Yoga Nidra. Enjoy. Hello again. I know that I've been talking a lot about attenuating seeds and samskaras. I just want to make a sort of brief summary comment to say why. What is the reason that the ancient sages have given us for practicing Yoga Nidra in the first place? This is the reason for doing it. It has become popular, I've mentioned this before, in modern times, that I'm going to pretend that I'm doing Yoga Nidra so that I can fulfill some worldly desire, some sankalpa, some determination that I want to have this amount of money or own that particular property. But that's not the reason that the yogis explored this and have left us this wisdom about Yoga Nidra. What it really has to do with is the attenuation of the samskaras. Whether we're talking about individual memories or relationships or the archetypes that I mentioned, all of that together, the entire purpose of Yoga Nidra traditionally has to do with thinning that veil that is the latent unconscious. between where you and I are operating out here in the world through a body and a brain and nervous system and all of that stuff, and using a conscious mind, and we're a breathing being, between this level of me and the true self, the Atman, the Purusha, the pure consciousness, between here and here lies this huge chunk of the unconscious. And the biggest aspect, most important aspect of that unconscious is the latent unconscious here, the level of the samskaras, which we're talking about as being seeds, and that they are formless. The whole purpose for doing this ultimately is to thin out this cloud. You know, and again, as a metaphor, I'm going to turn this. I am here, and there's the sun that's high in the sky, and here's the tornadoes and the black storms and the hurricanes that are going by, and the clouds are there, so I can't find the sun. And so we need to thin the veil, thin out the clouds so that we can experience that. And what we do for Yoga Nidra is we fall into conscious deep sleep. And I know I keep using the word, the magic of it is that the klesha, the coloring of the samskaras, those seeds, attenuates and weakens. And that's the reason ultimately that we're doing this. And so practice it, live it, play with it, and watch the magic happen. Okay? Bye-bye. Hello again. I want to talk to you for a couple minutes, not in great detail, but about brain waves. It's very popular. We love to know about science and modern science. I'm going to tell you a story. I'm going to tell you a story as a way of commenting on this thing about brain waves. Before I tell you the story, Yoga Nidra is really not about brain waves. But when you use instrumentation to measure what's going on with the frequencies of brain waves, it tells you what's going on in the brain. Here's a story. Around 1970, long time ago, that's what, 40-something years ago? Around 1970, Swami Rama was demonstrating these principles to some research scientists, and they had him hooked up to brainwave stuff. And he was laying there, and these are scientists, so these scientists had tape recorders going, recording what they were doing, audio recording of what they were doing while they were in the research lab. And so here they've got this fellow, Swami Rama, I'm not being a guru salesman in this, I'm just telling you a story, but it's a guy who knows how to do this stuff, is a real adept at these practices. He's laying there and he does Yoga Nidra. And the people, the scientists, there were doctors and researchers, and they're having conversations. After the demonstration was over, and the brainwave went very, very slow, down to delta level of brainwaves. Here is a man who is visibly in deep, dreamless sleep. Brainwaves said so. We all know brainwaves said so. It wasn't alpha wave brainwaves, which is relaxation. Alpha brainwaves, I don't remember the exact numbers, but alpha brainwaves is relaxation. It's commonly known, but delta is the deepest level of deep sleep brainwaves. And so here's the fella with all these really slow, super slow brainwaves. He's laying there lightly snoring. Body is snoring. And then at the end of that experimentation, he told the scientists, he told the researchers, you were having a conversation while I was gone and you said so. And he started reciting back the conversation that they were having. And for these research scientists, this was not possible. It's just not possible for a human being to do this. And And so they posed a question to him. Now, this is my playful way of saying it. When you watch a good stage magician, I've known a couple magicians in my life, and you see them really do a good trick. The natural thing that comes out of your mouth is, how did you do that? I knew one magician that his standard answer was, very well, thank you. You ask the magician, how did you make the rabbit appear or disappear, or the whatever it was that happened? I did it very well, thank you, which was not the question. It's a very natural thing to pose the question. Well, this is what the scientist said. Well, how did you do that? And what they really meant was, this is not possible, what we've just watched happen in front of us. We're scientists, we have PhDs, we have MDs, and this is not possible. How did you do that? And he said very simply, my brain was asleep, I was awake. Now, I'm not trying to convince you of that. I'm just sharing a story with you, just as food for thought. Ponder on it. Just ponder on it yourself, and I'm not asking you to believe it. Just ponder on it and at least consider the conceivability, if not possibility, that maybe there is something to this. And maybe consciousness can and does operate independently of brains and brainwaves. There's a lot of debate going on in modern science over this point. One of the things it's called is the hard problem of consciousness. And we don't know what consciousness is anyway. They get into debates over this. But consider the possibility that this little story captures the principle. His brain was in delta brain waves. They're measuring it with their EEG. The man's laying there, visibly laying there asleep, and was lightly snoring. And then said, here's the conversation you people were having. How did you do that? Like asking him, how did you do this? Meaning this is not possible. I was awake. My brain was asleep. Now, this is another way of attempting to talk about Yoga Nidra without it sounding like a stupid religious belief system. We have to get a glimpse of that I'm talking about there. There's no way to do it that I know of other than personal direct experience. We have to play with this and understand it, that it is not lucid dreaming and visualizing a new car or a bank account or a new lover or anything like that. It is conscious deep sleep, and that gradually it reveals the aspect of our being that is constantly awake, that is awake and alert when I'm in the waking state, that's awake and alert when I'm in a dream, that is actually there when I'm in deep sleep. But usually when you and I are in deep sleep, we're totally lethargic, heavy, dull, tamasic, unconscious. What we're trying to do with Yoga Nidra is conscious deep sleep. I'm not trying to convince you of something, but to tease you maybe a little bit so that you will play with this, run the experiments yourself, settle for nothing less than your own direct experience. And if you do this regularly over some period of time, I have no idea what that period of time is. And you don't have to be on an EEG brainwave machine, though if you want to play with that, there's biofeedback systems that do this. It can be very fun. It can be very useful. It can be an adjunct to these practices. But play with it, and find out for yourself, infer your own conclusion. Does this story sound, doesn't mean believe it. Doesn't mean I believe it that this Swami did this thing in 1970. It's not relevant. It's just a story, and it's about brainwaves. But maybe there's something to this. Find out for yourself in your own direct experience. Brainwaves, but it's beyond brainwaves. Another thing to mention here, when I mention that story from 1970, this is about somebody who had practiced this stuff for many, many years, decades, lifetimes. And when we're talking about, I don't know what word to use, an adept, a master, the words are difficult. You and I may not quite have that level of skill. We may not have that level of skill that we can literally record internally conversations that were going on while we were in deep sleep. But you will notice for yourself that the nature of sleep changes, and you will notice for yourself that you are becoming more aware of what's going on in waking and in dreaming and in deep sleep. You'll become generally more aware. It does not mean that you'll have that depth of skill of the story that I just told you. So, don't beat up on yourself if you don't suddenly become a Buddha. Just be a human being, be who you are, and play with the practices. Do meditation, yes, whatever system or type of meditation you follow, but practice Yoga Nidra. Practice conscious deep sleep. This is what we're trying to do. Conscious deep sleep. Yoga Nidra. And enjoy. Hello again. Yoga Nidra is a process of emptying. Now, when I say to you that Yoga Nidra is a process of emptying, we're using the terminology Yoga Nidra in two ways. One, the most important, is to remember, as I've been saying to you repeatedly, Yoga Nidra is a state of consciousness. It is the state of conscious deep sleep. But there is a process that we normally use to lead up to that jumping off point where we jump off into that conscious deep sleep. And if we refer to that process, we say the Yoga Nidra is the process that leads to the state of Yoga Nidra. Maybe that's a fair way to say it. That process has to do with one single word: emptying. In the guided practices that we have recorded and are giving to you, you'll notice in there that near the end of it, it moves your attention all around inside in some different kind of ways. Finally, it moves your attention here, then it moves your attention here, and then it moves your attention here, and the suggestion then is given to you to empty, empty, empty. Now, when you empty, you are emptying into that formless seed level where there are no pictures and words. It's very difficult to guide somebody. In some sense, it's not possible to guide another person into the state of Yoga Nidra. All we can do is guide the attention to the edge where you jump off, where you fall off into Yoga Nidra. But when we lead you up to the edge, moving your attention around in this kind of way, and then move your attention here, and then to here, and then to here, what we are doing is emptying. We are making a conscious choice to simply empty. Every thought, every picture, every word. We're moving you through your body. So if you're aware, you're moving through, it's a sneaky trick that a guided Yoga Nidra is doing. It may have you, it'll have you be aware of your shoulders, and your elbows, and your fingertips, and you're moving your attention around. When you finally follow that inward journey like this, and it leads here, when you empty into here, there's no shoulders, there's no elbows, there's no fingers, there's no fingertips, there's no pictures, there's no words, there's no friends, there's no restaurants, there's no food, there's no walks in nature, there's no nothing. You just empty, you completely empty. So everything that you're doing in the conscious choice of the procedure called Yoga Nidra, the process leading up to that jumping off, the whole goal of all of that is to empty. I just want you to know this word emptying. So when you do the practices, you'll be aware that this is where I'm headed for, is to empty, empty, empty. And it does not mean doing the mantra affirmation, empty, 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 empty. If you keep chanting the word empty, 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 all you'll do is stay in the waking state of consciousness, chanting the word empty, and that's not it. But the principle behind it is that it is totally emptying. And remember, before we talked about conscious mind waking in the dreaming middle ground of the active unconscious, those levels I said it was a little bit like a pyramid. We're emptying. Well, I mentioned there receding inward. But the actual thing that I am doing, I meaning you or whoever, that we are doing is we are emptying. We're emptying, we're shedding off empty, empty, empty as consciousness recedes inward. And then when I fall into this, now I'm in a state of emptiness. Now it's empty only in the sense that what is there is formless. It is seed level and is formless. Remember I mentioned to you the metaphor of the picture on the cell phone. That when you turn the cell phone off, when you have it on, you say, here's the picture of my baby. You turn it off, it's in seed form. It's on the hard drive. It's binary numbers. It's that principle. So we empty all the photo albums. We empty all the dream fantasies. Empty, empty, empty. All the way inward. Empty, 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 and have fun. Enjoy the emptiness. Hello again. I just spoke to you some about the process of emptying. This subject that we're talking about is loaded with paradox. So you say one thing and it sounds like we're turning right around and saying something else. Yoga Nidra is about the destination. It's not about the journey. So the journey I was just telling you about is the journey of emptying as we recede inward through the levels of consciousness. But what we're actually doing this for is the destination. The destination of the practices we're calling Yoga Nidra, the destination is the state of Yoga Nidra, the state of conscious deep sleep. Much earlier on, I mentioned to you that there are many people putting out a lot of guidance and information about Yoga Nidra. And it can be confusing that which kind of Yoga Nidra should I do? If we understand, if we slowly over time come to understand that what Yoga Nidra is about is the destination of conscious deep sleep and all of that goes along with it of attenuating samskaras and attractions and aversions and fears and seeds losing their potency, if we understand that that's the destination, then we can see, well, there's many, many ways of getting there. The journey is not just one journey. We're presenting you some methods of systematically moving inwards so that you can empty. But it's not about the journey. It's about the destination. The destination is called the state of Yoga Nidra. And the methods may be many, but the state is the destination. Eventually, you notice that this whole process becomes easier and easier and easier. There's a comment that I was taught that says when your whole life becomes one of meditation, meaning observing everything constantly, when your whole life becomes one of meditation, Yoga Nidra comes naturally. Ponder on that. When your whole life becomes one of meditation, Yoga Nidra comes naturally. So we're providing you methods and techniques, some recordings that will help you do this. Somewhere along the way, you will notice that you have the ability to simply lay down and go directly into the state of Yoga Nidra without having to listen to a recording. This is what we want to be able to do. Don't push yourself. Don't beat up on yourself if it comes slowly. I've known people who have done this more often than once a day for a couple years. I'm not suggesting that either. And then finally discover, wait a minute, I don't need these recordings anymore. I know how to do this, and yet still we'll use the recordings sometimes. We don't want to, it's not becoming dependent on a crutch. But sometimes if you've sprained an ankle, a crutch is needed for a while. And so use the crutch, use the recordings, use the guided practices, but remember that the destination called Yoga Nidra is what it's about. And it's not the many, many different processes that lead you there. We may use the term, I do Yoga Nidra, meaning I do the processes, the journey leading up. And so I say, do Yoga Nidra so that you can experience Yoga Nidra. We're stuck with this problem of language. just in talking about these things. But gradually, just be aware that gradually you will find that you can just sort of drop into Yoga Nidra very, very increasingly. I said too many varies, but increasingly easily. Even if it's just from time to time, you discover, wow, I've been spending an hour trying to drop into this state of Yoga Nidra. It took me, months to be able to experience it once, and now I still have to work at it to get there, and I just get a glimpse every now and again, and then all of a sudden one day it just happens and you didn't do anything. You say, wow, this is getting easier. And I say, good. Keep practicing, keep playing. Practice, yes, practice with conviction, but play. And remember, it's about the destination called Yoga Nidra. It's not about defining the journey that gets you there, although it has something to do with emptying and receding. See, there we go again. Enjoy, okay? Chakras. Everybody knows about chakras. People are doing workshops on chakras and writing books on chakras. Everybody knows something about chakras. Earlier I mentioned to you in the talks, and you will hear when you listen to the guided things, that after we move your attention all around in different ways inside the body, after we do all of that, we bring your attention here, then we bring your attention here, and finally we bring your attention here. And then we empty into the formless state of Yoga Nidra, of conscious deep sleep. What's this got to do with these chakras? In some sense, we all already know this. What's this chakra about? Everybody says it's Ajna chakra. It's the chakra of knowledge. Actually, it's the chakra of Ajna. A means not knowledge. It's the chakra of not knowledge. To the yogi, jhana, or knowing, means knowing of truth, or Atman, or Brahman, or Shiva, this one with Shakti, and all of that kind of stuff. It's the highest knowledge. If you were to write it in common way of writing in English language, you might put capital K, knowledge. The big knowledge, and then all of the other knowledge that we're doing is little k knowledge. What we study in books and universities and all that's little knowledge. It's very important in the world, but compared to the knowing of capital T truth and those kinds of things, there's lower knowledge and higher knowledge. So this chakra is actually of ajna. It is lower knowledge or not knowledge. But this is sort of the control center from which you and I operate out in the world. You can actually even look, however it happened, you can look at the construction of us as a being. Somewhere right in here, this is where my eyes are, my nose is here, my ears are here, my brain is right there. This is a control center, so to speak. I'm just choosing a choice of words. We operate from here a lot when we're out here in the world. We have sensitivity in other places, but I look at you through here. I don't look at you through my elbow. You see, I cannot take my elbow and aim it at you and see. I can't see you anyway because I'm looking at you through a camera, and there's a little time delay between me talking to you now and you actually watching this, of course, and we all know that. But I can't operate from out here with my elbow. Can't do it with my knee either. There's a control center here that is related to what I do in the conscious waking state. If you've read virtually any book on chakras, what is this chakra about? It is about the center of creativity, very, very commonly talked about in terms of the indriyas, the cognitive senses. This is the center from which hearing operates. It means taking in through sound. Energetically it operates here. This is the control center for speaking. In other words, this is energetically the place that has to do with expressing outward and receiving inward. Okay? This, just sit with that for a moment. This equates to what we do in the dreaming state. The yogis observed that when we are in the conscious waking state out here in the world, we operate from this control center. They discovered that when we are in the dreaming state and we're doing that, we are operating from here. It is from here that is our creative center. In a dream, when you're laying there having a dream, you're being creative. You are creating your own universe internally in the dream world. And energetically, there's a lot going on here. And what happens with deep sleep? You fall asleep into here. Now, this is different than saying, well, I meditate on my heart center. Remember, in meditation, I remain in dhyana. In meditation, I remain in the waking state of consciousness, but I may meditate here because I have an affinity towards love and emotion and bhakti and devotion and that kind of thing. So I may meditate here, and then I allow that to expand through my unconscious. That's for dhyana or meditation. But in terms of levels of consciousness, the way that we operate is that in the waking state, conscious mind, we predominantly operate out of this place. In the dreaming state, the creative place, we predominantly operate out of here. And in deep sleep, we tend to fall asleep here. And so this is what we're doing in the guided practice that we have given you. And it relates to the chakras in this kind of way. So we move you all around through the Sushumna channel, the subtle spine, and essentially through all of these chakras here. We move you through that. And we're leading you to the point then, in the final crescendo culmination, we bring you here. Then we leave here, we recede inward to here. And then we recede inward to here. Remember the pyramid metaphor I told you earlier. And then we recede, we empty into here. And there we discover formless, conscious deep sleep. It's not about chakras in the conventional way of studying chakras, but there is a correlation, so I wanted to mention it to you and share it with you. There's not anything in particular you need to do with this information I'm giving you at the moment. Just be aware of it as a background sort of thing and fall into conscious deep sleep as you empty into here. Let me add one little piece here. You already have this experience. If you think back, remember, I'm wanting to say remember back when you are laying in bed and you fall asleep. Most of us have some internal sensation of falling asleep, and you can feel the experience of this kind of movement inward. Notice what happens when you fall asleep. Notice how good it feels to take the pillow and squish it up here and sort of curl up into it. What are you doing? People may say, well, you're going into the fetal position. No, yes, okay, we're going into fetal position, but it feels just so good to bring our attention here and go into sleep. And so we're following the natural tendency of how we operate, and we're moving inward, and we're emptying. We are receding inward. We are emptying into conscious deep sleep. Hello again. I know I've told you already a few times that Yoga Nidra is a state of consciousness. But the way in which we use the phrase Yoga Nidra, we use it in two kind of ways. Just us people talking about stuff. We say, I'm going to do Yoga Nidra. So one is the use of like when we say, I'm going to do meditation. We do meditation, the process, so that it leads up to the state of meditation. So we can say, well, we do Yoga Nidra so that it leads us up to the state of Yoga Nidra, which is conscious deep sleep. So approaching or talking about Yoga Nidra as if it is the process itself, I simply here want to make it abundantly clear to you that there are many, many, many ways in which you can move attention around. In a sense, it's kind of a sneaky trick that we're playing upon our own mind. We're moving the attention around in all sorts of different ways in the conscious waking state so that the attention, so to speak, comes to the edge of a cliff. Now, this may sound like suicide, and I don't mean that, so it's not dangerous, but it leads us to the edge where we sort of jump off into the state of Yoga Nidra. How many methods or ways can we use to move the awareness, the attention around? Many, many, many ways. But if we understand where it's going, that it's leading us to the state of Yoga Nidra, which is conscious deep sleep, then we realize that, wait a minute, there is a simplicity to this whole process. Many, many methods of moving my awareness around internally in this way and that way and the other way. But finally, what is it doing? It's leading me to the simplicity. It's not easy to do. Minds get frustrated easily. I keep doing this thing and I'm not getting any result, and I'm told I have to be patient and practice and practice and practice and practice. But gradually we see the simplicity of it. Many, many, many methods. But yet there is a simplicity to the whole thing. Okay? Keep it simple. Hello, it's me again. There is a point where you will discover for yourself, don't take my word for it, you will discover that Yoga Nidra comes naturally. See, there, I've said it, now you can take it in, now go explore it and find out for yourself. The principle there is that when awareness, the practice of self-awareness of just what I'm doing in daily life, whatever I'm doing, cooking lunch, driving a car, chatting on my Facebook page, whatever you have to be doing, by paying attention then and paying attention to body and paying attention to breath and paying attention to falling asleep at night and getting up in the morning. When all of these activities of self-awareness or mindfulness or meditation in action, when all of these become natural habits and the practice of Yoga Nidra that we're learning here, when all of these we start doing, and when they become natural to do, then the ability to experience Yoga Nidra as a state of consciousness starts to come naturally. And then you start to realize, wait a minute, I can just lay here and go directly to the state of Yoga Nidra. This is easy. Doesn't start out easy. It starts out pretty complicated and sounds like all this complicated philosophy and theory and all of this. But ultimately we gradually start to discover, and you will too, that it comes naturally. And it's a natural thing for all of us to do who are actually beings of consciousness, or whatever you want to call it, that I can easily be aware of what's going on when my mind is in the conscious waking state. I can increasingly be aware of the activities of my active unconscious mind, whether I'm daydreaming or sleep dreaming, or just my mind is wandering around, increasingly aware of that. And I can be aware when my mind is in conscious deep sleep. Simple comment that I'm trying to make here for you, just as a reminder. Plug it in, take the seed in, and just let it sit there and watch the magic happen over some period of time. When your whole life becomes one of meditation, Yoga Nidra comes naturally, which is just another way of saying easily. I want to talk to you about Yoga Nidra and naps. We all know how nice it feels when you're able to, maybe you're at home and it's a weekend, it's a day off from work, and you're just on your couch. Maybe you've been watching something on television, or you've been watching one of these presentations, and it's interesting and all that, but you find that you're just nodding off. And where are you going? You're about to take a nap, right? See, I'm napping. I'm going to take a nap here, right in the middle of talking. No, I'm not really. Don't worry, I'm going to stay with you. but I'm playing with it like that just to say we all know what that's like to feel like taking a nap. It's nice to take a little nap right in the middle of a busy day. And when you have an opportunity to take a nap, it's an opportunity. It's just an opportunity to attempt to practice the shortcut to Yoga Nidra. Just play with this. All I'm asking you to do here is just be aware that when you want to take a nap, I see people around our ashram do this routinely. If they're visiting here, they're on the couch, we're watching a video or something, or it's after a meal, and just take a nap. And we talk about this a lot, of saying, be aware of the activity of falling into your nap. And if you're actively practicing Yoga Nidra and you understand that it's conscious deep sleep, from time to time, maybe every time, but from time to time, sometimes when you take a nap, you find that you're entering into that nap consciously. You're not moving your attention around intentionally so you can drop off from waking to dreaming to deep sleep consciously. You're not doing something like that. You're just taking a nap. Only this time, somehow you do it consciously. And you realize later that, wait, I just took a nap, but I was awake during the nap. And I just got a little snapshot, little experience of what Yoga Nidra is about, and all I did was take a nap. The reason I'm mentioning this to you here in this separate little presentation is just to say that this can happen. And I'm trying to invite you, be aware of it and experiment with it. If you want to take a nap, if you're watching me right now and you want to take a nap, go ahead and take a nap. But do it consciously and just allow it to fall asleep. Go right through the dreaming state. You don't have to be dreaming. You can move right through it into conscious deep sleep. Again, I beg of you, play with it. Just play. We all know how nice it is to take a little nap, don't we? You're probably doing it right now. But if you're still with me, wake up. If you're still with me, take a little nap and do it consciously and enjoy this. Have fun with this, please. And sometimes you will find that your nap leads you to, pun intended, a state of Yoga Nidra when you, quote, least expected it. Isn't that true? Sometimes the gems in life happen when you don't expect it, when you don't do anything. And here all you're doing is taking a nap. And you get a bonus. And you realize what it's like to be fully alive and conscious and nothing's going on inside. This is conscious deep sleep. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing. Take a nap. Fall asleep, but stay awake. Take a nap. Hello. Now I want to comment to you briefly on the next lecture or presentation, and it is a file that has in it 4 MP3 files. It's 4 different guided Yoga Nidra practices. And this is just a comment to tell you that the next one is there. It's got some words typed in there, and then you can download the 4 MP3 files. We've talked a lot about the idea behind what Yoga Nidra is. These 4 files are of different lengths. They're slightly different, but they follow essentially the same kind of principle. They range from, I think the shortest one is 27 minutes long and the longest one is 57 minutes long. And if you listen to the 3 shorter ones and then you listen to the long one, you'll notice that the short ones are little fragments out of the long ones. So you'll hear something familiar. But they all lead you to this conscious state of deep sleep where you empty into this center, you empty into this place. Just play with them. When you do these practices, just lay down on your back, ideally on the floor or the carpet. It's best, though, I know you're going to adjust in the way that feels right to you. It's best if you not do this just like in your bed with your head squished up on your pillow like this, because you can accidentally train your mind to just simply lose consciousness and fall asleep. So it's better to lay on a reasonably hard surface. It can be on the floor, it can be on a carpet, it can be on a mat, and put a slight cushion behind your head and put your arms to your side, and then just follow the voice as it's guiding through. Sometimes when you lay down like this, your body tends to feel a little cool. So you may enjoy having a slight blanket or a sheet or a shawl pulled up over you to make it comfortable. And just lay comfortably on your back and follow the voice with your intention, with your attention. It's about your attention moving. It's not about listening to my voice and letting my voice like hypnotize you. That's not it. If the voice says, put your attention on your left elbow, put your attention on your left elbow. It's about your attention in here, wherever that is, being aware of that elbow down here. The elbow is down here. The elbow is not in my voice talking to you about the theory of elbows. I know that sounds silly, but I've run into this a lot over years, that we accidentally can misunderstand this point, and we're just listening to a nice voice, and it's very calming and it leads us somewhere, and we think, oh wow, isn't this great? But as best you can, don't just listen to the voice. Allow the voice to lead you, and then you move your attention around. I'll give you an example of one of the comments that I've heard some relatively large number of times. A person's listening to this thing, they'll say to me later, something happened to me, I don't know what happened. I was moving through my body and you were on the left shoulder, and the next thing I knew, you were on the right big toe. What happened to all the middle of it? You with me? So it's moving attention through, and you were here, and then all of a sudden you were way down here, and I'll say, well, maybe you slept through. Maybe you just fell asleep for that couple minutes it took to get down to the right big toe. And a person often will say, no, I don't feel like I fell asleep. And what can happen is, we've talked about pratyahara, what can happen is you're doing this. Now in theory you're following my voice, and at the very end of the practice you're going to drop into here and drop into Yoga Nidra, conscious deep sleep. But what sometimes happens is you drop out along the way, and you just completely missed everything between the left shoulder and the right big toe. And it's a good thing. It's not failure. It's not a sign of failure. I'm just saying this to you. Be aware that sometimes you actually do the pratyahara, you withdraw your senses, and you're just not hearing the voice anymore. Why? It's not because you've lost consciousness and are actually just sleeping. You may be just asleep, but you'll know the difference. But you may actually have done pratyahara, you may have, like the turtle, you may have withdrawn your senses, and you actually are in the state of Yoga Nidra, and it's very, very nice. And if you're aware of this, then it goes very smoothly. Anyway, just play with these things, download them, put them in your phone or your laptop or your tablet or your whatever it is, and just put these on your instruments and play with them freely. There's form. I'm not telling you to do them in any particular order. It's not that one is better than the others. Play with them, listen. If you find that one of them draws your attention most, that you like this one best, stick with it for a while. If you like the long one, do the long one. Sometimes I've had people not like the long one just because it's too long. It's like the maximum the mind can take it is about 30 minutes of quiet, and at the end it's like, I don't want to do this anymore. And there's still 27 minutes to go in the guided part of the practice. And so if that's the case, do one of the short ones. If that one of those catches your attention, just stick with it and use it over and over and over again. In other words, I'm leaving it to you. I'm not prescribing to you which order in which to do them or which one. And it's not that one is better than the other. You'll find that one, pun intended, speaks to you, and follow that one. And then remember, the methods are many, and these are methods that are attempting to lead you to that jumping off place where you fall into emptiness here, into conscious deep sleep. Anyway, it's in the next thing that's going to pop up for you will be the resources. There's some typed text there that gives you some reminder ideas, and then just download those MP3 files and enjoy them. Okay? Most important, have fun with it. Okay? Enjoy. Bye-bye. Hello again. Well, here we are. Finally, we are at the end of our journey together through this discussion of Yoga Nidra. I hope that you've enjoyed it. I tell you the truth, I've had a ball sitting here doing this recording for you. What do you think I'm going to tell you here? What's the bottom line? What's the punchline that I want to give you after all this time we've spent together? Yoga Nidra is a state of consciousness. There is, in one sense, only one method of Yoga Nidra. There may be many ways in which we move attention around. We've talked about that. But ultimately, it leads to not waking, fantasizing, not lucid dreaming, but deep sleep that is done consciously. And in conscious deep sleep, there's no pictures, there's no words, there's no activities. It's just unbelievable stillness. And it has an effect on attenuating habit patterns of ragas and deveshas, attractions and aversions, what's commonly called karma, which is actually the samskaras, the deep impressions behind the karma. I don't want to restate the whole course. But there's only one state that we're going towards. So there's a basic simplicity to it. What else can I say to you at the end of this? Please, please, play with this. Life is to be enjoyed. Sadhana should be enjoyed. I can't tell you how many times I've heard a person tell me, I'm undisciplined. I have to figure out how to discipline myself with meditation and all of these practices. I'm just not disciplined. I have heard teachers of yoga postures, asana, and meditation classes, I've actually heard them say, you know, I'm so undisciplined that if I didn't teach classes, I would never be doing this stuff myself. It's heartbreaking to me to hear that. I have a simple question. If I say, what's your favorite snack food? And you say, chocolate. Chocolate is very, very, in some cultures, in the culture where I live, chocolate is very, very, very popular. Question. Pretend that you like chocolate, or if you're not chocolate, if you're from India and you like some of the Indian sweets, whatever your favorite version of that is. Let's pretend it's chocolate. Question. How hard did you have to discipline yourself to eat chocolate? I've never, not once have I ever had a person tell me, boy, you know, it took me years of discipline to force myself to eat chocolate, but finally I conquered it and finally I succeeded and I forced myself to like chocolate. You don't need discipline when you're doing something you enjoy. Do you? Think about it. Don't take my word for it. Think about it. If you enjoy this, if you enjoy being still and quiet, if you get some glimpses of what it's like to experience conscious deep sleep, you do not need discipline. You don't. Do what you enjoy doing. If you enjoy sitting in the conscious waking state for meditation, then discipline just fell away. No need for discipline. If you enjoy conscious deep sleep, Yoga Nidra, then you don't need discipline. I do understand that busy, crazy lives, that we have to do something when we have to sort of momentarily break ourselves out of that. Well, that's a different part of practice. That's just breaking ourselves out of the jam that says, wait a minute, I've had a busy day. I don't want to go home and lay on my back and be quiet like this. I want to go turn on the television or go race around or do something like that. Okay, go race around, run around the block, take a good brisk walk, do something like that, and then come have a piece of chocolate. I'm saying that playfully. Have the piece of chocolate if you want. I'm not trying to sell chocolate, but then just simply allow yourself to be quiet and do one of the practices. Okay? Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you for going through this. Thank you for playing. This ought to be fun. Enjoy. Bye-bye. See you another time.